happy to share this moment. I'm very, very happy to address us today. Well, my job is made easy. The topic I'll be talking on for the next 30 minutes or thereabouts is do's and don'ts for upcoming journalists. I love the fact that this topic leaves me with no option but to dwell more on the practical realities of the profession. You know, one unique thing about this kind of a class is that it is not the academic or the academic focused talk that you have in a normal or an orthodox classroom. When you are in a class like this, you are transferred from the classroom situation to the field, to the profession itself, where you grapple with the everyday realities of the profession. Now, let's start with the do's. For an upcoming journalist, there are certain things you have to ingrain into your system. Let me use the word pound. You have to pound it into your DNA, because normally as a human being, you have your DNA, but you are coming into a profession in which you need to act, you need to talk, you need to behave. Your sense of perception needs to be in a certain but professional manner, unbiased, professional. And for that to happen, you need to pound it into your system. You need it to run through the course of your blood flow, through your blood veins. And it becomes just simple reflex action for you to behave, to act, to talk, to listen, to perform, or to write in that certain manner. So now let's look through a few of the factors that I've listed with me here as do's for upcoming journalists. It takes me back to my own early days too, to the very beginning, and when I also had the opportunity to learn at the feet of experienced journalists who were kind and generous enough to share their few secrets of the trade with me. The first thing is to have a good understanding of the profession. If you don't have a good understanding of the profession, you will always find yourself at a crossroad. You will always find yourself in professional logjam. You know, there is a saying in English, they say you walk into a cul-de-sac. You will always walk into a cul-de-sac if you don't have a good understanding of the profession. You need to find for yourself, check out the definition, the different versions of the definition for journalism and broadcasting. Then own one of those definitions and apply it to yourself. Own it. Let it be that meaningful to you. It becomes so meaningful to you that even when people see you or you appear in a place and you open your mouth to talk, people can almost guess that this must be a journalist talking. So it is important for you. And one of the most profound understanding of journalism or broadcasting, whichever way you look at it, print or electronics media, that I have owned to myself over the years, was this, that as a journalist, you are a jack of all trade and master of all. I was privileged to hear this directly from the mouth of a doyen of Nigerian journalism, the first executive governor of Lagos State, Alhaji Lateef Kayode Jakonde of blessed memory. I don't know if any of us heard about that man. Now, that man was giving a lecture, and then it was Founders Day's lecture at NIJ in Nogba, Lagos. And I was one of the green-eyed students and a young and upcoming journalist then. And when he gave that definition, I was like, what's this man talking about? Because all my life, I grew hearing jack of all trade, master of none. But he said, as a journalist, you are a jack of all trade and master of all. So what this simply hints at is that you are going to be an all-rounder when it comes to your knowledge base. Because, for example, as a journalist, you will be asked to cover different beats. If you are asked to cover the judiciary, sometimes you have to study enough to sound and reason like a lawyer. Meanwhile, principally, your background or your discipline was not in law. If you are asked to cover health, sometimes you have to understand, you have to reason, talk, speak, or write like a medical doctor. Meanwhile, you didn't study medical science in school. So that panache for excellence must become part of you. So that is why I said you must have good understanding of the profession, that you are in a profession that opens you up to the world. You are in a profession that gives you a gateway to explore the entire world, and you are not stopped by the barrier of, this is not my background, this is not my discipline. You must be interested in embracing every form of knowledge that comes your way. It is important. You see a lot of journalists, some cover the economic beat, and they write stories, they do analysis of the Nigerian economy. They will talk about indices, they will talk about a lot of things of the economy. They will tell you about the downturn. You start hearing inflation is in double digits. You start hearing all sorts of things. They'll start telling you about the GDP, gross domestic product. These are people maybe who studied mass communication or who studied journalism, and they have nothing to do with either business management or economics. But because of the force of the profession and the nature of the profession they find themselves in, they have to study to show themselves approved in all these spheres. So the most important do for you, and you must have an open mind about it, is that you must have good understanding of the profession. And the profession covers the entire sphere of human endeavor. So you must be ready for it. Then I hope somebody is taking note and you're jotting things down. Now, number 2, study to show thyself approved. You have to study. I remember I did a special report during the lockdown, and it centered around the then novel COVID-19. It was novel because it was the first time nobody knew anything about it. So you can imagine me coming from a background, and I needed to do a comprehensive special report on COVID-19. So I needed to dig into stuff. I needed to understand what a virus is, how a virus works. I needed to understand what vaccine means, what vaccine can do, and all the other related matters that go with it, which took me a lot of study to be able to understand all of this, and to also understand how a virus breaks out, how it becomes an epidemic, how it becomes pandemic, what it means when it's an epidemic, and what it also means when it becomes a pandemic. So all of these were new on me, but by the time I finished my research and I concluded on my special report, perhaps you would have thought I was a virologist. So you must always study to show thyself approved, because it will take you through different lexicons of different professions. And you have to look the part. There is a saying, you say, you look the part. You have to appear the part, look the part, speak the part, and play the parts. Very important. Then number 3, which is a do for an upcoming journalist, it's that good understanding of the ethics and principles of journalism. Journalism has its ethics, has its principles. If you want to achieve excellence in the practice, it's like the Bible. You can't be a Christian without understanding the Bible. Neither do I think you can be a Muslim without understanding the Quran. So you must study to understand the ethics and the principles of journalism. And from there too, your knowledge of the do's and don'ts of journalism will become more profound. You know what you can say, what you cannot say. For example, if you're a broadcaster, you know things that are not healthy for the radio or the TV. You know things that will be considered not broadcastable, especially in your taste and choice of music. You know the kind of words that are accepted on radio or TV or not. You know that it's a no-no for the F word. You also know things that are liable to libel or slander, things that can actually not only cost you your job, but can land you a spell in the prison. So good understanding of ethics and principles of journalism, it's a compulsion when it comes to the do's for an upcoming journalist. If your aspiration is to be in broadcast, you can actually get the broadcast code, which is published by NBC, the NBC, National Broadcast Organization, National Broadcast Commission of Nigeria. That will establish you and grind you well in the ethics and principles of the profession. Yeah, so very, very important for you. Then number 4, do, like it is in every area of human endeavor, you have to be hardworking. Now let me digress a bit. Let me take you to your mentor, Sammy Wejian. Sammy Wejian is somebody I've known for the better part of 15 to 16 years. I'm not saying it because you know him, because in other forum where I have to talk to people, I use him as an example because I'm privileged to be part of his growing up, of his making in the profession. I met Sammy as a very young man, and me too, a lot younger than this. I mean, if you take 16 from whatever my age is now, I must be a young man myself that time, but he was still younger than us. But what I saw him doing, the attitude he brought to the job, the psyche that he brought to the job, the hard work that he brought to the job. You know, I remember then, especially at weekends, maybe on Sundays, breaking into Monday, because at that time I was based in Port Harcourt and my family was based in another state. So most times I travel for the weekend. So then I will be bothered about what our program will sound like on Monday morning, and I'll be thinking of returning, cutting my weekend stay with the family short so that I could come back on Sunday to produce ahead of Monday morning. He would just tell me, he would say, sir, just stay back with your family. Sometimes I'll call him very late in the evening. He will say in his house that I should not worry. And on the Sunday, sometimes he will have to go to Aba to watch a Iba FC of Aba. If possible, stay back in Aba, and only God knows how he does it. He will wake as early as possible on Monday morning, be in the office before 5. Our program usually was 7:30. But trust me, by 7 o'clock, Curtis and Wijia will have one of the richest sports bulletins in the South. By the time we'll be ready to go on air. So for me, who understood what must have gone into the work for it to be ready and to have that level of quality, I know that this guy didn't sleep. He didn't sleep, and he left the warmth of his bed to also be in the office very early in the morning. If that is not hard work, I don't know what else to call it. And several other examples. For some of us, there are times we have had to sleep over in the office. Meanwhile, the comfort of our homes will be waiting for us, but because the job had to be done, not only be done, it has to be done with the trappings of excellence. And for us to have the trappings of excellence on the job, we just have to be hardworking. And part of being hardworking, I was explaining to a colleague, to a subordinate recently, that I won't judge you as being commitment, because commitment goes with hard work or hard working. If all you do is just do what we pay you to do, if all you do is just to do what your job description says you should do, if all you do is that, well, 8 in the morning, they say you should resume, you resume. 5 p.m., they say you close and go home. I will judge you as being hardworking and committed when you go outside of the average demands of the job to do more so that you can have excellence in what you're doing, so that you can be marked different from the others. Now, there is a word called outstanding. You will not become outstanding if your level of output is pedestrian. You will never be described as being outstanding if your level of output is at par with the other average professionals. But you will be outstanding if you go head and shoulder above what the pedestrian person will do, head and shoulder above what your peers will do. Now, if 100% is demanded of everybody, but you are putting in 120, 130, you would have been hardworking, you would have displayed immense commitment, and my brothers and sisters, your record will always be outstanding. Now let's move on from that one. As one of the Jews for an upcoming journalist, especially if you want to attain excellence, especially if you want to become renowned in the profession, and if you also want to be able to reap the bountiful rewards in journalism, be a good learner. Don't ever stop learning. Early this morning, I've called somebody, I've spoken to that person, and I listened intently to learn from that person. I didn't consider that I have over 20 years experience. I didn't consider the fact that I've also been a well-traveled journalist. I didn't consider that I've sat at the feet of some of the best brains in the job to listen. But I listened, I humbled myself, and I learned a lot. So don't ever stop learning. Don't ever stop learning. Look at your mentor. Now, he could have been busy doing other things, but he made sure that he tuned in for this lecture. Because you never can tell, he can still pick something. Or something I will say here today will remind him of something that perhaps he had forgotten over time. So be a good learner. Every opportunity you have to learn from a colleague, sometimes you learn from a younger colleague. You learn from even a subordinate sometimes. Don't be too proud to learn from everybody, from anything. Don't be too proud. There is a good book I read, and there is a passage in that book that says, have you seen the ant? Go and learn from the ant. You can imagine how insignificant, going by look and appearance, an ant is. But that book, that is a reservoir of divine wisdom, says we should actually go and learn from the ant. And if you learn from the ant, you will never be in want. You will never be in lack. You will never suffer scarcity because of the way the ant plans its way, how it's stockpiled for when there will be scarcity, so that when there is scarcity, the ant has enough in his silos, in his warehouse, to take care of when there is famine in the land. That's great wisdom. So be a good learner. Don't be too proud to learn from anybody, anywhere, at any time. And keep learning. There is a saying that says, a man stops living when he stops learning. But for as long as you continue to learn, you keep living and live a better life. So moving on from that, which is part of your dues, next one is that at all times, maintain required standards and long-standing tradition of the profession. Don't ever classify some things as being old school. I was talking to people in my station, my OAPs. You know, one thing about OAPs, I've been an OAP before myself. I'm still an OAP, I say Stockholm. It's sometimes we believe we have so mastered our terrain and we can just walk into the studio. Now, I learned in some finest tradition of broadcasting. One of them is that you don't ever, you won't catch me going into the studio without a script. And given the number of years that I've been doing what I do, I can actually go into the studio and ad-lib all through, and you will not know that I'm ad-libbing, that I don't have a script. But I have never made myself to become that presumptuous or that proud. I always make sure. Because when you have your script with you, what your script tells me about you is that, number one, you deliberately prepared. You put in conscious effort into preparation. That's why you have a script in your hand in the first place. If you go to some of the media organizations that will look up to, for example, you will never see any of their anchors or OAPs go on there without a script. In fact, your producer would have prepared your script for you. And you have a time, 30, 45 minutes an hour, to familiarize yourself with what you have on your script. Because it's that you have to script. Now, another thing that I also learned, which I've taken as part of tradition of journalism, especially broadcasting, is that you don't eat anything from 30 minutes to the time you go on. You don't eat. It's a no-no. Another thing is that you don't rush into the studio where you are still panting or gasping for breath. No. Some people know that they will go on air by 9 o'clock. But because they believe that is it not the program I do every day, I'll kill it, even if you just wake me from sleep. The program will go on air by 9. They will stroll into the office premises around 5 minutes to 9. Then they will practically run up the staircase to get to the studio. And by the time they open the microphone, you could still feel and hear a faint, you get a faint hint of them trying to gather their breath. That is highly unprofessional. The profession suggests that an hour before the time to go into the studio, be within the office premises. Have enough time to familiarize with your script. Then if you have to call names, have enough time to find the right pronunciation of some of the names that are strange to you. For example, you could be an Igbo man and you're going to be reading the news. You have Hausa names, you have Yoruba names. These are not native to you, but you have some people who are native, who could tell you, who could teach you the right pronunciation of such names. But if you rush into the studio and get there late, where would you have the time and opportunity to make it right? And it's actually unforgivable when you murder or you butcher people's names. Then the last but not the least, because of time on this forum today, is mastery of the language of your work. Because as a journalist or a broadcaster, you must have a language with which you do your job. Some is Pidgin, some is English, some is one of the local languages. But the tradition remains universal and the same, irrespective of your choice of language. What is very important and of tremendous, I must say importance, is your mastery of that language. You must be proficient in that language. If your language of communication for your program, of expression for your program is English, then you have to be proficient in English language. If it is Hausa language, you have to be proficient in Hausa language. If it is Greek, you have to be proficient in Greek. If it is Pidgin, you have to be proficient in Pidgin. And every language has its own set of grammar, grammatical laws and principles. Your flow in your language must be in consonance with what the laws of that language prescribe as a right manner of speaking that language. You cannot come and have your own brand of English. English is English. You cannot come and have your own brand of Hausa language. Hausa language is Hausa language. You cannot come and have your own brand of Yoruba. Yoruba language is Yoruba language. Then even Pidgin too, those who do Pidgin have also told me that it has its principles. So mastery of the language of your work is very important. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 do's for an upcoming journalist that I've just highlighted here today. And if you abide by these do's, if you adopt them as your own do's, as your own set of rules, it will put you in a good stead throughout your career. You just have to develop on it, adopt it, imbibe it, let it become part of you. Then it becomes effortless, because consistent practice makes perfect. Make sure you look out for all these do's and you see them conspicuously, not only when you are doing your job, even when you are preparing for your job. The do's should always be at the back of your mind, guiding you and navigating you through the difficult junctions and moments on the job. That's for the do's. Now let's drop the do's and go to don'ts. Then when I'm through, the time will be allowed for question and answers. Now on the don'ts, there are things you don't do if you want to be an accomplished journalist. There are things you don't do if you want to be an accomplished broadcaster. Just as it is in every other profession. Because if you do any of the don'ts, then you would have crossed the line. And one thing about disciplines is that if you do not obey the principles, if you break the principles or the theories, the rules or regulations that are guiding and guiding the profession, it has a way of coming back to punish you because it's unforgiving. That is why every different area of human endeavor is referred to as a discipline. In a disciplined environment, errors get punished, omissions get punished. And like they say in law, ignorance is not an excuse. So now to some of the things that you should consider as don'ts for you as an upcoming journalist. Number one is that do not break the ethics and principles of the profession. You are not the founder of the profession. Over time, the profession has evolved and it has gone through transformation. It has gone through developmental phases, different phases of development to take it to the level, the respected level that it is now. Journalism, I don't need to tell you, you all know is the fourth estate of the realm. So for you to get to this level, there are basic and background ethics and principles that have upheld the profession and kept it together. So you can't come in today and you seek to break any of this. So do not break ethics and principles of the profession. It's a huge don't. Write it down somewhere. Don't ever do that. You must always script your program. Don't break it. Don't eat 30 minutes before you go on air. Don't break it. Arrive your work premises an hour before the time to go on air. Don't break it. Do not use F word. Don't break it. If you're in broadcasting and you do that, your station gets fined. And no any employer would like to keep in his employ somebody that attracts fine to the station. You don't say is when it is worse, and you don't say worse when it is is. If you do that, you'll soon find yourself out of job, because nobody wants to listen to that kind of a station. And when you are not attracting audience for your station, then the owner will soon find out and throw you out, because nobody wants to keep such a person in their employ. So do not break ethics and principles of the profession. Number 2, no room for assumptions in journalism. Don't ever assume. Do not ever assume. No room for assumptions. You must be factful. That's why you fact check every information that comes your way. You must fact check every information that comes your way. Don't assume. And at all times, you must be accurate in reporting. At all times, not just sometimes, not at some of the times. At all times, you must be accurate in reporting. Because journalism will become an art of lying when you are inaccurate. And you don't want to be that journalist that will turn journalism to the profession of liars. We are not liars. We give accurate account of events. That's why we don't call our own, even though it's storytelling, we call it reporting. Because that could sit in professional garments when we call it reporting. So like I said, it's a don't, no room for assumption. No room for assumption. Now, maybe a report comes to you now that a father defiled his 6-year-old daughter. Don't assume that neighbors are lying against him, because we've actually seen that such things are possible. Don't even question the logic in the story. Your own is to investigate, to be sure that that was exactly what happened, and you get the accurate reports of the event, and you will be factful in presenting your report. Don't assume, is he mad? Why would the father sleep with his own daughter or mess with his own daughter? It happens. It's none of your business. Don't question the morality. Don't question the logic in any story. Because in this world, logic can be stood on its head. In this world, we have a lot of people who don't give 2 hoots or 2 cents about morality. So don't question any reports on the basis of morality or on the basis of logic. No, don't do that. Because there's no room for assumptions. You have to be factful at all times and be accurate in your reporting. Another don't is that in writing and speaking, which is verbal and non-verbal communication, cut out every ambiguity. Ambiguity is a no. Make sure you are very clear in your presentation or in your writing. You have to be clear. Nobody needs an interpreter to understand what you are saying. Nobody needs to get a dictionary to understand what you are trying to say. Do not be ambiguous. Do not go with empty words or misleading words. You have to be very clear, and you have to express very clear and transparent line of thoughts so that you are not misrepresented or misinterpreted. That is don't number 3. Then don't number 4 is do not be judgmental. In the elements of journalism, you are asked do not be judgmental. That is why as a journalist, don't come and say, well, you're welcome to my program this morning. Well, I'm afraid I have to inform you that I have bad news for you. That is by your own judgment. It is your own judgment that the news is bad. To some people, the news is good. To some listener or viewer, well, it's indifferent. It's neither bad nor good. So do not be judgmental. Now, as a journalist, a report comes to you that a public office holder has allegedly, mind the word, I said allegedly, allegation that he had committed fraud up to the tune of 10 billion naira. You don't come and say, well, one of the people that are robbing the Commonwealth of this country has just been arrested and is being investigated by EFCC. They said he stole 10 billion naira. With your opening line of saying one of the persons who have been robbing the Commonwealth of this, you have already judged him as a thief. You have already judged him that he is as guilty as alleged. And even in law, everybody is innocent until a court of competent jurisdiction find them guilty. Otherwise, everybody is innocent. But if you come because of the emotions and the sentiment that you have zero tolerance for corruption, and you judge the person even before the person was arraigned in court of competent jurisdiction, then you have been judgmental. You have also been presumptuous. So do not be judgmental. Then be neutral at all times, especially when you are dealing with a story that has to do with two sides or two factions involved. Do not take sides. There can be intercommunal crisis, and you as a reporter, you are reporting it. You must not take side with either side A or side B. But if you have your personal biases, keep your personal biases to yourself. But in presentation or in giving an accurate report of the situation of the crisis, be neutral at all times so that you don't end up fanning the embers of violence. A journalist is always neutral. Don't let your biases be known or be seen through your work. Keep it to yourself. If there is religious hostility between Christians and Muslims, your report must be accurate and neutral. You will not say because you are a Christian, you are going to skew the report in favor of Christians. You will not say because you are a Muslim, you are going to skew the report in favor of Muslims. But you will be neutral and give an accurate account of what happened. So being judgmental or taking sides, it's a don't. And you have to understand that as an upcoming journalist, ingrain it into your system and let it become your mantra, especially when it comes to your work. So the last but not the least here that I will take as part of the don'ts is on objectivity. You have to be objective at all times. There's no room for being unobjective. And being objective, it's also a further explanation of do not take sides, do not be biased, do not let your work, the discharge of your duty as a journalist, as a watchdog of the society, do not let it be colored, your sense of reason be colored by your personal bias. That I'm a black man, then when something happens, I want to present it in a way that it favors the image of the black man and maybe present the white man as the villain. No, you have to be objective. You have to be truthful. You cannot be untruthful. It's a don't. No room for personal sentiments and bias in journalism. And this is where I close. Thank you very much. Hello.
Hi, thank you very much, sir. This is Sammy Wejin. Before the class captain comes in, I think this will be the first time I'm doing something like this. I want to say to all of you call me Ogasami. When this class is over, I want you to check my Facebook. I wrote something while the class was on, as I followed everything that happened in this class. While the class was on, simultaneously, I was multitasking and putting up something on my Facebook page. I'm going to drop the link here about this gentleman who just lectured us. Like he mentioned, when I was a very young man, he wasn't just my boss. He was a second father to me. I'm quite emotional, even as I say this right now. If it wasn't for this man who is talking to you all now, I wouldn't be here. I probably wouldn't have been alive, because you know how it is as young men, you're hot-headed. It's the period where you can either make that decision that can make or mar you. And this gentleman was primarily responsible for making me the man that I am today. I spent more time with him than I did with my parents back then, because I was spending most of my time at Silverbird Communications, and he was always there to guide me and to lead me. So Gbenga, I'm quite emotional as I say this. I want to thank you. Since 2020, when I flagged off this project, you've always been there lecturing the students. You've never asked me for one kobo, no matter how you are, no matter how tight. Sorry, a call was coming in. Sorry, I don't know if you guys can still hear me. A call was coming into my phone, so I think we lost me for a few seconds. Okay, brilliant. So Gbenga, I want to thank. Sorry, someone persistently. So Gbenga, I want to thank you for everything you did for me as a very young man, and even up until this time. I'm not an old man yet. I can't call myself an old man when I'm in your presence. I'm still your boy. I want to thank you very much, sir, for everything you've done for me and everything you've continued to do for me. And to all of you who are in this class now, I want to say to you that you're very privileged. You're very privileged to have been a part of this lecture. And I will always say to you, don't just allow what you heard today to pass through one ear and come out of the other ear. We have our official YouTube channel. This meeting is being recorded. I want to charge you. Don't just do this when I'm there. Don't just do this whether I'm watching or not. Go back to this lecture again and again and again. Rewatch, watch, rewatch. Listen to every word that you heard from Gbenga. These are words of wisdom. So thank you for being part of this. And Gbenga, thank you very much for doing this. God bless you.
Thank you so much. It's always my privilege. Always happy to do this anytime and every time.
Okay, so class captain, if there are questions, Gbenga is a very busy person. For those who don't know, he's actually the general manager of the equivalent of the last station we went to, not in River State. You can check out his profile. He's the equivalent of Mr. Shego Olabi in Port Harcourt, where he's based right now. So he's a very big man, he's a very busy person. So let's just do this as quickly as we can so that he can go back to his other duties. Class captain, if you're here, let's get the questions quickly so we can let our lecturer go back to other duties he has to attend to.
Thank you.
Please, if the class captain is not here, Adobe, can you hear me? If you can hear me, just unmute your mic, please. Ada, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, Ada, coordinate coordinate the Q&A very quickly so we can excuse the lecturer.
Okay, sir. All right, guys, please, if you have any questions for our lecturer, please raise your hand so I can call you to the floor. If you have any question, raise your hand. Let me call you. Please, let's be fast. Okay, please unmute your mic and ask your question. Peace, Odigi.
Good afternoon, sir.
All right, Mr. Mike. Okay.
All right, good afternoon.
All right, please, I have just one question to ask.
All right.
Okay, based on the class. For the don'ts, the number 4 of it, do not be judgmental, in the sense that don't assume you know some certain things, even always try to investigate before you talk. Well, I want to ask, for instance, I think, or I believe, or I don't know, I might actually not be correct. Talking about that, for instance, as a journalist, you have some issues on your table you have to treat or handle. Are you not supposed to like bring your own personal, maybe idea or experience to like, you don't just have to take everything you've had or something, also bring in your own personal idea or something in order to handle such issue. Don't you need to contribute your own quota in order to maybe take it out to the audience also? So that's my question. Do we really need to put in our own contribution, or maybe you have a content before you and you have to don't just take everything, you have to put in your own words or your own understanding. That's my question. Thank you, sir.
Okay, let me see if we can get 2 more questions, then I'll deal with the questions.
All right, guys, please let's remember to script our questions. Yeah, so Mr. Mike Cookie, please ask your question. All right, Obuko Wotega, please ask your question.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Thank you for this lecture. So my question is description. When you're called for someone like urgently, how do you handle scripting?
So I don't know if you can take that again.
Available.
There was an interference from the connection there.
Okay.
So.
If, for example, a coworker is not available, like, okay. Can you hear me, sir?
Now I think it's better now. Yeah. Okay, you can take it all over here.
All right, sir. If you're called upon to fill in for a coworker who is not available, how do you handle scripting in that kind of scenario? Is it
filling in for a colleague? Hello? Hello? Hello, class?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so Ada, can we get 1 more question? Because that will now make it a 3rd one for me. I didn't hear the guy that spoke that asked the 2nd question. I heard the 1st one and the lady that asked about filling in for a colleague and scripting in such a circumstance. So can we also have 1 more?
Okay, Mr. Mike, okay, we can't hear you. So please, I don't know if you can unmute your mic.
Can you hear me now?
Better, Mike, better, yeah.
Okay, all right, sir. So my question, sir, borders around facts, be factful and accurate in your reporting, no room for presumption and biases. Assumption, yeah, and biases. So I want to know, sir, when you watch the Western media and their reportage concerning Africa as a continent, it seems it really looks biased, and you could see strong assumptions and issues where facts are not really cross-checked. So I want to know if this is a global standard as concerns the profession. That's okay.
Are you done, Mike?
Yes, I have a 2nd question. I wouldn't know if I would want you to.
Okay, it's a quick follow-up. Let's have it.
Okay, sir. So it's also in respect to scripting. We had a lecturer that actually, he shared his experience where he told us times where you can be called upon to fill in for a colleague. There's an emergency. In that case, what do you do in terms of always be scripted before going into the show? When you are suddenly called upon to fill in for a colleague, what do you do in that regard, sir? That's just my other question. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mike. Now, let me take the 3 questions one after the other. Now, the first person who asked the questions spoke about being not judgmental. Yes, they don't be judgmental. Because as a journalist, your duty is simple. Your duty is to report. Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Yes,
When I say don't be judgmental, what it means is that you as a journalist, your job is cut out for you and it's quite clear. You are not to sit in judgments. You are not to determine what is good or bad. Your own is to present. That is what your duty is as a journalist. Like I said, you can't come now and say, oh, good afternoon. It's unfortunate I have some information for you today. The news I have for you, it is a bad news. You cannot judge whether a news is bad or good Because what you say is bad is good to some people. And to some people, they are indifferent to it being good or being bad. So it's not your work. Then again, when they also allege that somebody is caught in an act, when you are reporting it, you are not supposed to be judgmental. It's for you to say a gentleman has been arrested for alleged. You won't say a criminally minded young man. Or God has exposed the antics of a criminally minded man who is alleged or who was alleged to have stolen his neighbor's goods. You have already condemned him by saying he has been exposed, by saying he's a criminally minded person. That is not journalism. So that is what I mean by being judgmental, that you have to run away from it. It is not our duty as journalists. We are not in the judiciary. We do not interpret the law and judge people. We are journalists. We are reporters of events that occurred. I don't know if I've made myself clear on that. We don't sit in judgment in our presentations or in our reports. Then the lady that calls to ask a question about scripting when it comes to filling in for a column. Well, it depends on the standard at the station. Because, for example, in my own station, I'll use as an example. Before I will call in somebody to fill in for an absent colleague, I mean, there is a house rule of when you're supposed to get to work. And immediately at the time you're supposed to get to work, an hour before the time of your program, if I don't see you, the first thing I do is to call you. Let me find out what's holding you up. And I'm sure that in short 5-10 minutes, I should be able to establish if you are coming or not. And if I, of course, gather that you're not coming and somebody needs to sit in for you, I'll get someone to sit in for you. It also depends on the structure, practice at the station. Now, if it's at the station where it is not the presenter that is the producer, normally the producer of the program writes the script and gives to the presenter. I'll quickly summon the producer and the script will be given to the standing person to prepare. But where the producer also doubles as the presenter and the person is not coming at all, it behoves on me, it behoves on the structure of the station to find out in time. And when you find out in time, you get to the next person. And the person must get ready one way or another. And getting ready, part of getting ready, even if the script is not going to be as comprehensive as that of the normal and the usual presenter of that program, and let's say this one is an ad hoc arrangement, you don't just go in to do anything by mistake. You must have some level of preparation, even if it is inadequate. It can be like somebody who has spent 1 week to prepare for that program, somebody who has spent 2 days, an entire day to prepare for such a program. So even if I have 30 minutes before I go in, I must put something down to guide me while on that program. A lot of, you see, when lectures like this hold, I realize that a lot of young and upcoming professionals wants to make an excuse for not having script. The truth, I will tell you, is that it is unacceptable when there's no script. I've been at classes in Europe, in America, and I've not seen anywhere where exemption was made for script. Because scripting is equivalent of preparation. It is like, it is unacceptable in the profession for you to go and do anything without preparing. It must be an odd situation, terribly odd. And for an upcoming professional, you don't get it into your system that there will be times when you won't have script. Because it's like you saying there will be times when I won't prepare and I will just go and do my program. However little, even if it's to check the definition and the different meanings of the topic you want to treat on the program, that is still some preparation, that is still some scripting. Then number 3, Mike asked about biased reporting. And he gave example of maybe the Western press or media sometimes being colored by bias in his reportage of situations or events in Africa. Well, there is something, I don't know if that one is for this class, In media generally, all over the world, universally, there is something called agenda. Even if you study the Western media, let us look at CNN. Everybody knows that they are pro-Democrats. They will never see anything good in a US president who is not a Democrat. And they will pretend not to see anything bad or negative in a US president who is a Democrat. Because that is their own slant. That is their bend, they bend towards that. And maybe you could see some level of bias in that. But the fact that they do it does not justify it. Journalism in its purest form, it's not biased, and it discourages every bias. And as an upcoming journalist who is attending this class, I won't sit here and teach you that sometimes you have to be biased. No, there's no room for bias in journalism. If the Western media is doing it, they are doing it in error and in breach of the standards of the profession. And where it is apparent, they suffer both hands. There are many times they have made volte-face and recant on what they have said. You don't want to be that kind of a journalist who, when you are embarrassed and the truth is waved in your eye, you begin to recant, you begin to retract, and you begin to apologize. I'm sure you don't want to be that kind of a journalist. But what your profession has told you is to be unbiased. Then Mike also asked as a follow-up question that if you are suddenly summoned to sit in, to hold out for a colleague who unfortunately is absent from work, there may be no room for you to script. But I insist that even if it is 5 minutes, even if it is 10 minutes, there is enough time for you to put something down to guide you. If nothing at all, there must be a topic you want to talk about. There must be a subject you want to talk about. At least list down the name of your subject. Maybe find a definition. There are some subjects that have 3 or 4 different meanings and definitions depending on the context. Find context for what you want to talk about. You can put all those ones down, and that might be enough to guide you through the program. But that you won't have any kind of mental preparation or do 1 or 2 jottings down to go into the studio, I think for me, we should all see it as a no-no, as a don't. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. I think your answer was quite explicit. Please, is there any other question? Is there any other one that I have a question? The lecture has been great. It's been great. Is there anyone that has a question we want to? Okay, Ada Obi, I see your hand up. Quickly, can you have the floor? Ask your question.
All right, sir. As a journalist in training, we've been taught to improve on our vocabulary. And you earlier mentioned that we should avoid ambiguous words when writing or presenting. How then do we now implement these 3 words that we've learned?
As a journalist, a broadcaster, much as I have no problem with your self-development plan to improve your vocabulary and all that, I have no problem with it. But the golden rule in journalism is to keep it simple and clear. Now, for example, somebody like Professor Wole Soyinka, Nobel laureate, greatly respected. If you will handle a program on radio as a journalist, not as a guest or making a guest appearance where he will be himself, but if he's going to be the anchor and come from an angle of a broadcaster, he won't say most of those highfalutin words that you hear him say. Because the truth is that how many of the people listening at that time would know the meaning of what it's saying? And what is communication if there is no feedback? And especially in electronics journalism, especially radio, where there's no room for you to say, people immediately call you and seek for clarification of what you have said. For example, if you are reading the news now, and you use a word that a listener does not understand, he has an opportunity of asking you to explain that to him. So the golden rule, like I said, is to keep it simple. When you are doing your work as a journalist and broadcasting, You are not trying to impress us with your repertoire of vocabulary. You are just trying to do a professional job. Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I think we just have a couple of minutes or so. If there is anyone with a question, please signify with a raise of hand. Other than that, we'll be bringing the lecture to a close. Is there anyone with any question? Okay, I seem not to see any hands, sir. So I want to really appreciate you for this time that you have you've given to us. We don't know what will be your closing shots or your closing words to us as we bring it.
All right, quickly, my closing remark will be first to thank Sammy Wejia, the convener of this training. And I'll tell him that he has done something that a lot of us, those of us who even came into this profession well ahead of him, maybe we have not thought of, or we never thought that we could make out time to affect the incoming generation positively, to pave the way, to make the road a bit smoother than we met it, and to give them the right kind of background and orientation and gateway into the profession. I want to thank him for this mentorship program. I also want to thank him so much for considering me maybe good enough to have something to share with this class, because for me, it's a great privilege anytime I have an opportunity to speak to a group of upcoming journalists, share from my well of experience. It does me so much good. It gives me the feel-good factor in me. And to the class has been quite attentive. I love your incisive questions. They are quite probing. I mean, a journalist needs to have a probing mind, just the way a journalist needs to have the nose for news. I appreciate that I've seen those elements at work in this class. And I want to let you know that if you keep applying yourself and availing yourself of opportunities of the different kinds of resource persons that journalists, world-class resource persons that Sammy makes available for you guys, the sky will be the beginning for you in the profession. You will be the beacon of hope for this profession in the future. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so very much, sir. These are words of gold, and I'm very sure that my colleagues will definitely apply ourselves to it. And we want to say it's a great privilege, sir, to sit at your feet and to learn. Thank you for your time too. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Okay, sir. So, sir, please, this is where we'll be dropping the anchor for the class. We know you are quite busy, so we want to excuse you at this point in time, and we want to appreciate you once again for your time.
Thank you.
Have
very
a wonderful.
Much. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. I love you all.
Right. Thank you. We do love you too, sir. We do love you. Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah.
Also, okay, so guys, we know the usual drill. This is where we are dropping the anchor here for today's lecture. We know what we need to do. Go to the group and we drop your learning points there. I don't know if our boss have anything to say before we shut down the link. I see he's still in the class with us. Boss, do you have a word or two you want to?
Okay, sorry, Mike, can you hear me? I'm actually in a noisy place now. I apologize for that. Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you.
Okay, the first thing I want to say, is the lecturer still in the class or he has left?
No, he has left us, sir.
Okay, I wanted to say nobody should call me boss when the lecturer is in the class, but he has left. Nothing else to add. Let's just follow the lead of the class captain. Thank you very much, everybody, for being a part of the class. I'll see you all in class. Thank you.
So thank you. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, guys, this is where we call it a wrap. Do have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of the day, and let's please turn